Hello and welcome to the Foxhole cast on All for the Game Reread podcast. I'm Una.
And I'm Nate.
Today we'll be covering Chapter 2 of the Foxhole Court, in which Neil arrives in South Carolina and immediately regrets his life choices. So, long time no Foxcast.
Yeah, at least a week.
At least 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Or some shit like that.
Time flies.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. For anyone who doesn't know, we had a really busy summer. I had COVID briefly, blah, blah, blah. A lot of stuff has happened this summer, but the most important thing is that Nora Sakovich said that the Sunshine Court is going to be a trilogy.
I think you just texted me that in all caps, and it was like 3 a.m. or something.
You know, you were the first person I texted because, you're not on Tumblr anymore. And I just, needed you to know, we are in this for the long haul. I'm so excited. I was gonna be, so disappointed when the series ended. I'm sure it's gonna be good. Or maybe I shouldn't say that. I'll jinx it. But, I was really looking forward to the second book and final book in the Sunshine Court part of this series. But I was thinking, oh man, then it's gonna be over, and we don't know if she's gonna write any more in this universe. But now there's gonna be another book.
Nora Sakovich was like, it's not fucking over. It's over when I say it's over.
Literally. And we thank you for it.
Yes.
Oh my god, I'm so excited. Also, before we get started, I just want to say thank you for 150 followers on Tumblr.
Yeah, what the fuck? Thank you.
Which is more followers in 2 episodes of Foxcast than we have gotten in 45 episodes of Return to Regalia, which is wild.
So what we're saying is you need to read the Underland Chronicles.
Yeah, go read Gregor the Overlander and then listen to our other podcast. It's nothing like the Foxhole Court, but, if you read it, then you can listen to me and Nate and our other friends talk about it.
Yeah,
so.
Extended universe.
Win-win. Speaking of Tumblr, a few days ago, I asked for everyone's Chapter 2 thoughts, and we got a few replies. I'd like to start off with this ask, because last episode we had someone write in and say they've never read the series, but they're going to be, following along with the podcast, and they wrote in again with their Chapter 2 thoughts, so I thought we could start with that.
Excellent.
Anonymous asked, "Welcome back. Do you know how hard it was to avoid reading Chapter 2? Meant it when I said I wasn't going to read it until you guys drop. Oh hey, twins! Time to pull a Kiss Kiss Fall in Love Ouran High School Host Club twink trap on our Gay Mafia boy."
Are the twins in this series like the twins in the Ouran High School Host Club series? Not at all, but would they be really disturbing and interesting in an Ouran High School Host Club Foxhole Court AU? Yes.
That would be so fun.
Yeah. I think we were trying to work that out the other night.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out who would be who. It doesn't really match up so well, but
no.
I'm sure someone out there has attempted to write it.
Some brave warrior.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the ask goes on. Now, without spoiling myself, I already know who our boy ends up getting with, but I find it incredibly interesting that it's with a twin. I hardly ever see a twin the subject of a romance, let alone a queer romance. I would just like to recommend 2 books that have twins in romances. One of them is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and the other is The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. And in both of those books, the main characters are twins. They're not queer, but then there are other queer relationships in those books.
I have a queer twin. I'll Give You the Sun.
Oh, that's right!
Yeah, that's if you want a sad one. I think I actually cried while reading that, but...
I read that in high school. It's really beautiful. It's a really good book. It is super sad, though.
And there's Gay Twin. Just one.
Just one gay twin.
Just one gay twin.
Yeah. Oh, and The Locked Tomb.
Oh, how could you forget?
How could we forget about Ianthe and Corona Beth from the Locked Tomb series? They're weird twins, though.
Yeah, it's a little different.
If you like weird twins, then that's the book series for you.
That's interesting, though, because I never thought about, I feel like the only thing I see with twins in media is that they're just always, 90% of the time there's twins, it's they're weird horror movie twins. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes when there's just, regular twins, I'm like, oh, that's nice for twins. Mm-hmm. That's good. But I never really thought about romance and gay twins. Okay, this is why you need to read The Secret History. No, wait, the twin's not gay. Fuck. Never mind. This sucks.
That book has like gay vibes though, right?
There's actual gay in it too, not just vibes. The vibes are very strong, but there is in fact real.
Nice.
Yeah.
The ask goes on, hats off to the author for creating a sport. Think the only other one I can think of is rollerball, although at this point it's less deadly, right? I'm sure we'll find out. And I looked up what rollerball is because I actually didn't know. It's from a 1975 sci-fi movie called Rollerball.
Fuck yes.
It's, I think, a dystopian.
We need to watch it.
Yeah, we should definitely watch it because it sounds interesting.
Wait, you said it's a dystopia?
Yeah.
Where they play rollerball?
Yeah. It's set in 2018.
Oh, fuck. Now I remember that.
Do you remember in 2018 when everyone was playing rollerball?
Yes, and it was a dystopia.
It was a dystopia.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah, no, that's just what they thought in 1975, what they thought 2018 would look like.
I think that was a beautiful dream of theirs.
Kind of like a Death Race 2000
type
situation.
Yes.
That's a fictional sport.
They were really imagining a lot of weird sports in the 70s and 80s. I feel like Nora Sakovich is like not a pioneer, but she's tapping into a long classic tradition of making up weird sports, but she turns it on its head by saying it's not in the future. It's right now.
It's happening now.
Now it's happening now.
Yeah, thanks for sending in that ask. We also got this reply from Tumblr user Just a Mess with a bunch of S's on the end. Because I asked, like, what do you think about chapter 2, basically? Like, the whole Andrew Aaron switcheroo and, like, Nikki is introduced as a character, etc. So this person says, the twin switch was so confusing to me when I first read it. Same.
Yes.
I had to go back and reread immediately. Nikki is really unfortunate representation, which I think is a good way to describe him. Especially in the first book, but it seems like Nora tried to drop that or let him develop in the second and third books, which I agree with. He's much better after the first book. I think the fandom and fan fiction characterizes Nikki so much better. Also agree.
I haven't read enough fan fiction, but I feel like it can't get... We really have only up to go.
Yeah. So thanks for that reply to my post asking for your chapter 2 thoughts. I can't wait to talk about all of this stuff in chapter 2.
Yeah.
Not a lot happens in it, but there is a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So we should get right into it. Where we left off, Neil had run away from the Millport High School Stadium with Wymack's unsigned contract in his bag.
All right.
In chapter 2, we jump forward to Neil in an airport in South Carolina. He's never been to this airport specifically, but it feels familiar because he's been through so many during his life on the run. He's uneasy because there are a lot of people to watch out for, and his passport is fake. It's a good fake because one of his mother's, quote, connections did it, but it's still risky. Later, we're going to learn that Mary Hatford, his mom, came from a British crime family, so she's got, like, connections all over, and Neil kind of just talks about them a lot, but we don't meet almost any of them.
I feel like we only really meet his uncle.
Yeah, we just meet the uncle.
I guess he is, like, he's trying to avoid them, but...
Yeah. Just a side note, the 2 airports mentioned here are called Sky Harbor and Upstate Regional. Upstate Regional is not a real airport in South Carolina, but there is a Sky Harbor airport in Phoenix, Arizona.
Huh.
And I'm like, why would you use one real airport and one fake airport?
Yeah.
Why not just make up both of them or use 2 real airports?
I wonder if she had just, like, been to Sky Harbor and was like, yeah, that's a cool airport name. And just hadn't been to any other cool airports with cool names. Because I also was researching the airport thing, and there's lots of airports with regional in the name that are clustered in the South Carolina.
Okay.
So that could have been just, like, one that sounded like it would belong there. And then the other one, she was just like, fuck it, Sky Harbor's cool. But yeah, that is strange.
I guess it's because, like, Palmetto State University, the town is also Palmetto, right?
I think so. Actually,
I don't even fucking know either. But it's not real, so I guess she had to come up with a fake airport that was in her fake town?
That makes sense.
But you made up Millport, Arizona, so why not come up with a fake airport?
Oh, yeah. Wait, so so Sky Harbor is in Arizona. I thought she had moved it to North Carolina or South Carolina.
No,
okay.
Sky Harbor is a real airport in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
That Neil ostensibly went through.
Okay, I feel like it's kind of reasonable to fly from, like, a real airport in a real town and then go to a fake airport in a fake town. Like, it is weird that you have a fake town but a real airport, but I guess the town didn't have the airport in it.
Yeah, he had to go to Phoenix.
He had to go out of the fake zone and go to a real town, and then he flew back into the
fake zone.
Into the fake zone.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter, but I just thought that was interesting.
That is. I did not notice that.
Neil gets off the plane and waits by the gate to check if he knows any of the other passengers, because he's, like, afraid that people are following him. Eventually, he goes to arrivals and finds one of the twins there to pick him up. Neil perceives the twin to be calm, so he thinks it's Aaron, aka, quote, the normal twin. Of course, later we learn that this is Andrew just pretending to be Aaron. So we're going to call him Pretendrew.
That's great. That's very good.
Neil notes that he's about 5 inches taller than this twin, which is not true because literally last chapter we got Andrew's height and he's 5 feet even. And Neil is canonically 5'3".
I thought it said he was 3 inches taller when I...
It says 5 inches in the Kindle version I read.
Wait, hang on.
Should we check it?
Yes. Holy shit. We're gonna blow this whole thing wide open. Luckily, I wrote short king rep and then forgot to write the page number when I was taking notes.
Good job.
Thanks. Okay, and this one it says, Neil had been the shortest player on the Millport Dingo line, but he had 3 inches on Aaron.
Oh, interesting. Hold on. Let me double check the Kindle edition. Yeah, wow, it says here, Neil had been the shortest player on the Millport Dingo line, but he had a good 5 inches on Aaron.
Ooh.
So there's just 2 different editions. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I wonder which one... Let me see when this was published. Or I guess this is like a...
Because 5'3" is Neil's actual height. Like, in the extra content, or in the back of the book or whatever, it has everyone's, like, ages and heights, and Neil is canonically 5'3".
Yeah.
So your copy is the correct copy. But wouldn't it be, like, easy to correct a mistake in a Kindle version? Like, you just, like, upload the latest edition.
Yeah. Well, this one...
Why would my edition be out of date?
This one's made in 2013, or it says copyright 2013. I don't know when it was actually printed.
But I think that they didn't start selling paperbacks until much later.
Oh, you're right.
Because it was just ebook for a long time.
I wonder if she just like changed Neil's height, but then why?
Why not change it in the Kindle too?
Yeah. And if this is a discrepancy, are there others? Or did we stumble upon the only one because we are detail-oriented?
I do have actually one other. This is in a later chapter, but I remember when I first read the books, when Neil goes to Betsy's office, the therapist, Betsy the therapist.
Yeah.
Neil sees that all of the shit on her shelves is, like, set equidistant from each other, and he's like, oh, you have OCD. And, like, I, as a OCD high schooler, like, took note of that, but then that's not in the audiobook.
Oh.
Like, they just took that part out, and I'm like, am I making that up? Did I misremember it?
That's because you probably can't check that anymore in the Kindle version either.
I don't think so. Let me look. Yeah, there's no OCD matches.
I guess, like, I feel like being able to tell that somebody has OCD from equidistant shelving arrangements is like some Sherlock BBC shit, but...
Yeah.
But that's still strange that that's still wild that you, like, remember that and then it mysteriously vanished.
Yeah. So, like, what's the deal?
What's the truth?
When we get to that chapter, you're gonna have to tell me if it's in the paperback.
I feel like, do you mind if I check right now? Or
Go for it.
Okay, sick. Do you remember?
I don't remember what chapter here. Let me try.
Oh, sick. Okay, I'm here. I'm at the beginning of the meeting with Betsy now.
It's like one of the first things that Neil says to her.
Okay, it mentions...
Oh my god, it's in here!
I think it's not... Hang on, it's not in here because it mentions there's the equidistant knickknacks.
Okay, it doesn't say OCD. It says, you're obsessive compulsive, Neil said when Betsy stepped into the doorway behind him. But I don't think that that's in the audiobook.
I don't think it's in here unless he says it later. But I feel like I do remember him using those words.
I'm just like, out of all of the things to tweak about this series, why would you change that?
Yeah.
Like, there are a ton of other things that we could fix about this
true.
book.
For improving representation.
If any of the listeners know what the deal is with the different editions of these books, please let us know, because I'm actually kind of interested in, like, when did Nora edit stuff or, like, re-release stuff. Okay. After Neil says he only has his duffel bag carry-on and no checked luggage, he and Pretendrew get going. I really can't wait for you to read Sunshine Court because this scene is paralleled with Jean and Jeremy, like, exactly.
Nice.
Like, Jean shows up to the airport and Jeremy's like, where's all your stuff? And Jean is like, this is it. Because he just has the one bag and he owns like 2 shirts. It's so funny. There's like so many jokes about it. Like, at one point, Wymack like leaves money for Jean to like buy clothes, and he's like, he left a note that's like, I'm not doing this again, because he had to do it with Neil.
That's so funny. And he doesn't even have like a gay style guy this time, right? No, wait, Nikki's still there.
Nikki's still there, but he doesn't talk with Jean.
That makes sense.
It's actually, we can't fucking get into this right now. We need to wait until we get to Sunshine. There's a really funny part where Jean walks into Andrew and Neil's dorm room and he thinks that Nikki's bed must belong to Aaron, and people in the fandom were joking like, Jean doesn't know who Nikki is.
Nikki's just like, I'm not dealing with this shit again, and just gets himself as far away from this new drama as possible.
I think that would be so smart and good for him. I think Nikki should just get the fuck out of here.
Just go hang with his German boyfriend.
Pretendrew walks directly into traffic and he straight up almost gets hit by a taxi, but he just lights a cigarette and keeps walking.
It would have been so, I mean, not funny exactly, but if it's just, he just gets
end of series.
End of series.
So yeah, he just like does not fear death at all. Like, I don't know why he would do this,
right?
Though.
Like, he's just like, Neil's gonna think I'm so cool if I almost get hit by a car, but don't even give a shit and just smoke like it's no thing.
I'm just so hardcore, and he needs to know that. Yeah, literally. So they get in Pretendrew's car, which is black to match his outfit, and Neil thinks that the car looks expensive. They sit in the car in silence until Pretendrew gets halfway through his cigarette, and then he drops it and starts the car. Pretendrew says now that Neil is here, there are 5 of them in town for the summer. Neil guesses that this means himself, Andrew, Aaron, Nicholas, and Kevin. Pretendrew confirms that Kevin stays where the court is because, quote, he can't exist without it. Neil says, I didn't think it was the court Kevin was staying for, which implies that he thinks Andrew is why Kevin is staying, which is also true. Pretendrew drives like a madman and comments on how Neil didn't get along with Kevin when they first met in Chapter 1. Neil says he was just surprised because he didn't know Kevin would be there. Pretendrew says that's the second time a recruit has told him to fuck off, which is a reference to when Andrew first met Kevin the year before, because basically Kevin and Rico tried to recruit Andrew for the Ravens, because Andrew's like really good, but Andrew also hates Exy, or like pretends to hate Exy. It's complicated.
It's complicated.
But basically Andrew refuses to join the Ravens because he hates Exy, and then because he's annoyed by Kevin relegating himself to being second best behind Rico. The extra content actually has this scene written from Aaron's point of view.
Oh, cool.
It's really good.
Ooh, okay.
It's like a pretty short little story, but it's like Aaron's perspective of Andrew and Kevin when they're in high school.
That's cool. You know he misses all the homoerotic tension, though.
Yeah, basically.
That does sound cool, though. I'm gonna have to read that.
Anyway, Neil says Andrew must have had his reasons for refusing Kevin. Pretendrew asks if Neil thinks he'll be good enough to play with Kevin by the end of the summer. Neil says, no, it was just too hard to say no. Neil explains that even though he's inexperienced, Millport's team allowed him to play because they were too small to care, so he was just in the right place at the right time. Pretendrew asks, do you believe in fate? Neil says, no, do you? Pretendrew says, luck then. Neil says, only the bad sort. I just love, like, do you believe in fate? Like,
right?
Wow, Andrew.
Damn. And I feel like I'm just imagining this scenario where Andrew's like, do you believe in fate? And Neil's like, no. And Andrew's like, oh, me neither. Totally.
Yeah. Also, I think that even though Andrew is, like, kind of messing with Neil right now, and Neil is not, like, he doesn't care what Andrew, or he thinks it's Aaron, like, thinks of him, so he's not trying to impress him. But when he says, like, he only believes in bad luck, I think that he's, like, really winning Andrew over, actually.
You're so right.
Like, I think that neither of them were expecting Neil to get the answer right, but that's totally, like, a good answer. Pretender continues to drive recklessly, and Neil says, "It's too nice of a car to wreck." Pretender says, "Don't be so afraid to die," and implies that playing Exy with Kevin is just as dangerous.
Always what I love to hear from somebody driving the car.
Yeah.
I like that Andrew's meds are to stop him from killing people on purpose, but he's still allowed to kill people on accident in car crashes.
Yes, and he takes full advantage of that
Yes.
possibility.
Although I guess he's not on his meds right now, never mind.
Oh, yeah.
So actually it's normal for him.
It's just normal for him to drive crazy. Yeah. The narration gives us some exposition about Kevin and his adoptive brother Rico. We learn that Kevin's mom Kaylee and Rico's uncle Tetsuji Moriyama created Exy about 30 years ago in Japan. Side note, the audiobook says Tetsuji, but I'm pretty sure that in Japanese the emphasis is supposed to go on like the first syllable.
I also think so.
So it's supposed to be Tetsuji, but then when I tried to look up the pronunciation, all the websites said Tetsuji.
Oh, maybe.
But as far as I could tell, those were like computer generated voices and not actual Japanese speakers. If you know the correct pronunciation, just let us know, please. Anyway, Exy got created by college students in Japan. Kaylee brought it back to Ireland, and soon it was popular all over the world. When Kevin was still young, Kaylee died in a car accident, and Tetsuji took him in. We don't have to get into this right now, but the extra content does confirm that Kaylee's death was actually orchestrated by Kengo, Tetsuji's older brother.
Oh, fuck yes. I mean, that's bad, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Also kind of wild that they're like, the sport seems like it's getting pretty big. We better kill the other person who invented it so we can definitely have a monopoly on her son and the sport in general.
I think it has to do, I'd have to look at the extra content again, because it's not in the book. It's literally like, this is something that Sakovich just like said offhand in an answer on Tumblr or something, but I think it was like Kaylee didn't want to like leave Kevin with them at the Ravens stadium, or like didn't want Kevin, I don't know. Like Kaylee was doing something that they decided would be detrimental to Kevin's fame.
Hey, what if we have Kevin have a normal life?
Yeah, and just like orchestrated her car accident. So
R.I.P.
Yeah. Kevin and Rico were raised at Edgar Allan University's Exy Stadium, Castle Evermore, and tutors got brought in to teach them so they didn't have to leave, which seems like a great way to raise normal, well-adjusted children.
That's like some gothic shit, straight up.
It truly is, and I also just realized that it's Edgar Allan University, but not Edgar Allan Poe University.
Wait, yeah, I never considered that.
Like, they didn't use his last name, his second last name is okay.
Yeah,
wait,
I thought Alan was his middle name.
Is Alan his middle name?
Hang
so
on.
why wouldn't they use his last name in the university?
Yeah,
Shouldn't it be Poe University?
Yeah, maybe. I feel like Edgar Allan sounds cooler than like Edgar Poe University, maybe.
Yeah,
and Edgar Allan Poe University. I bet it was like
too long.
Yeah, or too on the nose. I feel like Nora was like a subtle, because honestly, I'm not saying that this is evidence that this is subtle, but I did not get that this was an Edgar Allan Poe reference until the second read. I was just like, Edgar Allan, that's a weird name for a kid's school.
And they're the Ravens, and it's Castle Evermore.
Yep, food.
That was over your head.
Yeah, that was too highbrow for me.
That's funny. I also love that it's Evermore and not Nevermore.
Right.
Because in the Raven poem, it's Nevermore.
I guess
they just thought that was too negative.
Right, yeah, they're like, no, Evermore is more encouraging.
Yeah. But yeah, just the fact that they call it like a castle it's very gothic.
Yeah, and they say it's like the Raven's Tower, right?
They have Fox Tower, which is where
right.
the foxes live. That's like their dorm.
Yes, and is it Raven's Nest?
The Raven's Nest is what they call.
And it's underground.
Yes, it's under the stadium. I can't wait to talk about the Ravens' fucked up cult situation. So Kevin and Rico grew up like celebrities, and they were together all the time, which, quote, led many to worry about their psychological well-being, but also fueled a rabid obsession with the pair. Rico and Kevin were the face of the Ravens. To many, they were considered the future of Exy.
Wow. And I'm asking the very important question, in universe, do people write RPF about Kevin and Rico?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, you're right.
In one of the earliest drafts of this series, Sakovich said that Kevin and Rico were boyfriends for real.
Oh, wow.
Like, in past versions, like, Kevin has been with, like, Andrew and Neil and Rico.
And he's just ruined all of them. He just can't.
He's just, apparently he's straight in this draft.
I feel like Kevin and Rico would be very fun and fucked up.
Yeah, there's a lot of fan fiction about it.
Ooh, I bet.
Yeah, it's out there. But yeah, Kevin ends up with a woman in this draft, which I don't understand.
What, that reminds me of is there some book where it's like, or some movie where it's like all the different universes? I don't remember. There's something where it's like people want to get together, but it's like, no, the world will only work if you don't.
Back to the Future?
I don't think so, but I'm gonna settle it as that.
We have to go back in time and make it so Sakovich publishes the draft where Kevin and Rico are boyfriends.
Yes. Complex chain of events we need to set in motion.
Anyway, last December, Kevin and Rico vanished from the public eye, and when winter break ended and XE Spring Championships started, neither of them was on the Ravens starting lineup. Mysterious. At the end of January, Tetsuji told the news that Kevin broke his hand on a skiing trip over winter break, and Kevin and Rico were too devastated to be in the public eye. But later we learned that story is bullshit. Rico broke Kevin's hand on purpose, and it's what makes Kevin leave the Ravens and become Wymac's assistant coach for the Foxes. Wymack told the news that Kevin was with him in South Carolina, and this made the Raven fans upset because they thought that even if Kevin can't play, he should be helping his home team, not the Foxes. But everyone thought, surely as soon as his hand is better, he'll come back to the Ravens. But in March, Kevin signed to play with the Foxes as a striker. And the rabid Ravens fans vandalized Palmetto State University because they felt so betrayed. And Neil thinks that it's going to get worse when they see Kevin actually playing for the Foxes this year. Exposition dump over. For now.
Yeah.
Pretendrew and Neil arrive at Wymac's apartment complex. As Neil gets his duffel bag from the trunk, Pretendrew does his little switcheroo with Aaron, but Neil, doesn't see that. So, in summary, Andrew pretended to be Aaron to pick Neil up at the airport, so this whole time, Neil has been talking with Andrew and thinking that he was Aaron. So now the twins are themselves again. On the sidewalk, Andrew and Aaron are dressed identically, but Neil thinks that he can tell which one is which from the expressions on their faces, which, first of all, is fucking bullshit.
Right? I like that, yes, we do have, Andrew does pretend to have never met Neil, so, that makes him think that it's Aaron, but, immediately when Neil sees Andrew in the airport, he's like, oh, that's Aaron.
That's the normal twin.
Maybe you're at fault here, Neil.
Yeah, for assuming. Yeah. And it has to do with, Andrew's weird made-up meds.
Right.
And, but it's just, complete bullshit. And it confused the hell out of me the first time I read these books.
Yeah, same. I feel like how Andrew is when he's on or off his meds, I don't know if it keeps switching back and forth, or I could not keep up with it. Sometimes it would be like, Andrew is happy, that means he's not on his meds. Andrew's happy, that means he is on his meds. And I'm like,
yeah, it's just whatever suits the narrative at that point in the story. I also love the idea of Andrew just tossing an outfit at Aaron in the morning and being like, we have to match today. Yeah. We have to gaslight our new teammate.
And Aaron's like, sure, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, he just doesn't even bother putting up a fight because he knows he won't win. Aaron looks bored, and Neil thinks it's because he's fulfilled his duty in bringing Neil here, except this is actually the first time Neil has ever seen Aaron in person. And Andrew is smiling, except later we learn that Andrew only smiles when he's on his meds, and the whole reason he's able to pass as Aaron in the beginning of this chapter is because he's off his meds.
Wait.
So, I don't fucking know.
I was just, reading this the second time, I was like, is he faking smiling? And he's just
I think it's that Andrew is so stupid.
Right? He wouldn't even, it's not Neil, because Neil did a ton of research, so he does know
yes.
that. But it's Andrew's just he's oh, I better smile now so that Neil thinks I'm me.
Yeah, so Andrew, when he is on his meds, he is, quote, manic, unquote. And he has to be smiling, he is forcibly happy on his meds.
Oh, that's scary. I mean, I know that was already, but has to be smiling is scary.
Yes, it's really fucked up.
Maybe Andrew is on the Joker gas that the Joker in Batman uses on people.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yes, we figured it out.
But then when Aaron... The fact that they start with the same letter also is fucking stupid.
Right.
I hate how many characters' names start with the same letter in these books. Like, Neil, Nikki, Nathaniel, Nathan. Like, can we stop? Fucking Jean and Jeremy in Sunshine Court. Oh my god. Just give them all different letters. Anyway, so when Andrew is on his meds, he has to be smiling because his meds make him, like, manic or whatever that means. When he's off his meds, he can pretend to be on his meds by smiling.
Okay. Cosplaying.
He's cosplaying as a good medicated boy.
Yes. Aren't we all sometimes?
Yeah, truly. So if you're confused by this whole, like, Andrew's smiling, so that means he's on his med, like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure that it's supposed to. You just have to go with it. Everyone is confused the first time that they read this chapter. Kevin is there too, and so is Nicholas Hemmick, who is the only one who looks genuinely happy to see Neil.
Which Neil immediately decides to fuck that right up.
Right. He introduces himself as Nikki, Andrew and Aaron's cousin, and a backliner, so he's on the defensive line. Are the terms striker and backliner completely made up for Exy, or are those, like, borrowed from a different sport?
I don't know.
I wouldn't know.
Can I look it up real quick? I feel like striker is a thing.
Yeah, go for it.
What's a backliner? Backliner could be...
I would have guessed that backliner would be more likely to be a real term because striker sounds fucking stupid.
No, I feel like there's strikers. Backliner, okay. According to Merriam-Webster, the meaning of backliner is a defensive player on a team's back line, as in ice hockey or soccer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now I'm looking up striker. Striker sports. Oh, soccer.
Okay, so these are terms in soccer.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I think that Nora Sakovic played soccer at one point in her life.
Nice. Yep, Cristiano Ronaldo is apparently a striker, according to Google.
I didn't know that. I thought that these were just made up terms.
Yeah. I feel like every time, I feel like my brain kind of just, like, glossed over all the Exy shit because when I first read an Exy scene, I'm like, okay, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just going to tune in when somebody gets hit with a racket.
Yes.
So I don't ever know.
I guarantee you are not the only person who reads these books that way.
Yeah.
There are a ton of people who just skip through the Exy scenes entirely. But Nikki and Aaron are backliners. They're the defense. And Neil and Kevin are strikers. They're on the offense.
Yes.
Nikki... Okay, here we go. Nikki is described as having, quote, jet black hair, dark brown eyes, and skin 2 shades too dark to be tan. Which I don't think is a great way to describe someone with brown skin.
Right, I don't think that's, like...
Something about the phrase 2 shades too dark is, like, not good for me.
Yeah, that's very true.
Especially considering that Nikki is pretty much the only character who is explicitly described as having dark skin.
Right. I feel like everybody else is just in the expanded information or whatever.
I don't even think in the extra
really?
content. I think it's just, like, fans sometimes will draw. Like, okay, the fandom generally, like, there are trends for all of the characters who don't get their race explicitly described. Like, a lot of people had canon Dan and Matt as being black.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But, like, a lot of people had canon Neil and Andrew and Aaron as white, etc. But Nikki is, like, if not the only character, like, one of the only characters who is described as having dark skin.
And luckily for us, Nora Sakovic immediately explains how that could be possible.
Yeah, when Neil hears that Nikki is the Minyard's cousin, he asks, by blood? You can't just interrogate people about how they're related, Neil.
Right? And also, like, you've never seen family members that don't look like each other before.
Literally. It's so rude. Nikki says, don't look it, right? Take after my mom. Dad rescued her from Mexico during some la-di-da ministry trip. This is not great either, Sakovic.
Right? I just love how, like, the book just needs to explain why he's biracial, as if, like, a white person and a Mexican could never meet without a convoluted backstory that Nikki also has to drop really casually, as if there's ever a way to, like...
Yeah!
Like, just...
Like, the book is trying to justify him being Mexican. It's like, he can just be there.
Right, right. It does say some interesting stuff about his family that we'll find up later in terms of like how fucked up they are religiously.
Yes.
Like I feel like reading this the first time I kind of like glossed over the actual backstory of his family and I'm like, oh, they're religious, so they don't like him being gay, but like, no, they're going on missionary trips.
Yeah, that's like another level of religious.
Yeah.
And I understand that the way that it's written here, Sakovich is trying to be like ironic or sarcastic about this. Like, it's obvious that she doesn't think that like Nikki's dad actually rescued his mom from Mexico. Like, I understand that it's written sarcastically, but it's still a shitty backstory for this book's only canon main character of color.
Yeah. And just the awkwardness with which she needs to figure out to have Nikki drop that is like, it's kind of obvious that this was not a good idea. You should have maybe rethought this.
It's just like unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to hear other people's opinions about Nikki as a character because I really hate the way that he's written in this first book and I need to know what other people think about him. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Nikki says Wymack isn't here yet, but they have the keys so they can give him the tour of the apartment. Nikki makes a comment about Wymack making all the money, so he gets a nice apartment. Well, quote, we poor people couch surf. Neil says, you have a nice car for someone who thinks he's poor. And Andrew explains, Aaron's mother bought it for us with her life insurance money. It's no surprise she had to die to be worth anything. I can't even, like, make it through Andrew's lines without laughing.
I know it's a deep psychological thing, but I do love that he says Aaron's mother when they're not obviously twins.
Yes.
It's like, bro, we can immediately tell you have some problems from this.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we're gonna learn later, but, like, Andrew grew up separately from Aaron, and, like, Aaron's mother is biologically Andrew's mother, but Andrew does not see it that way.
No.
So, Nikki is afraid Aaron will react badly to Andrew's comment, but Andrew says, it's a cruel world, right, Neil? You wouldn't be here if it wasn't. Neil replies, it's not the world that's cruel, it's the people in it. Which has over 9,000 highlights on Kindle. Andrew just says, oh, so true.
I love that Neil is not saying that sarcastically. He is responding with complete sincerity in that moment.
Yeah, and I think that Andrew is kind of impressed by his, like, outlook on the world.
Uh-huh.
He's like, oh, maybe you do fit in here with us miscreants.
Yes.
Wymack lives on the 7th floor, which makes Neil nervous because it means he can't jump out a window to escape if he needs to. Neil watches Aaron look for the apartment key in his pockets, and he's confused because he can't see the pack of cigarettes that he previously saw Pretendrew put in his pocket at the airport. They open the apartment door, and Neil thinks about how uncomfortable it'll be to live with Wymack. Later, we'll learn that because of his father's abuse, Neil distrusts older men. He considers staying at a hotel instead, but then he realizes everyone is staring at him, so he goes inside.
Also, this will come up again, but I just love, like, the elaborate choreography of some of these moments at that big group. Like, he realizes, he stops, and then he sees that Nikki is looking at Aaron, and he's like, oh, I need to move. And, like, all this, we get, like, a blow-by-blow of all the significant glances that happen.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know how I would write that either, but it's a little awkward.
Yeah, it can be a little awkward, and I think that if you keep reading these books, like, you'll get used to it, but there are a lot of scenes that have a lot of characters in them, and you kind of have to, like, Neil is very observant. Like, that's part of his character, so it makes sense that he's noticing all of these things.
That's true.
He's noticing, like, how the other people are, like, reacting to him and the situation and, like, where they are in the room and who they're looking at. So I think that makes sense, but it is hard to read at points.
Yeah.
Behind Neil, Nikki starts speaking German to Andrew and Aaron. So this is the first of countless conversations in the series that happen in a language other than English so that only certain people can understand what's being said. And I think it's actually pretty clever, and I can't really think of another piece of media that does this as much as this series does. Like, Six of Crows kind of does it, because Nina can speak so many languages, and I'm rereading King of Scars right now, and they have also done this, but those are fictional languages, and it's not nearly as often as in this series. I feel like Neil is just speaking all kinds of different languages to people all the time so that other people can't tell what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, it's a major plot device. But also the linguistic capabilities of these characters are very unrealistic at times. Like, later they're going to explain that Andrew and Aaron took German in like high school because Nikki was living in Germany or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he was in Germany managing to still have an incestuous romance.
Oh my god.
I'm just really proud. I just really like that he went, like when he describes later how he met Eric, his boyfriend, he's like, yeah, Eric was my brother in Germany. I'm like, you could, like, we don't have to use these words exactly.
His host brother?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't even have to drop that information.
Right.
You could have kept it anyway. So I don't, like, Andrew, we later learn, has photographic memory, so I get that he can, like, speak German, and, like, Nikki lived in Germany, so he can speak German, and so did Neil. But, like, Aaron, I don't believe that man knows this much German. Like,
he's just trying to keep up. People will say things and you're just like, yeah.
Yeah. Neil is freaking out because he thinks that Nikki and the twins know that he speaks German from living in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland for 3 years, but actually they're just talking to each other. Nikki asks Andrew what he said to Neil, meaning what Pretendrew said to him in the car, which is another clue that it wasn't actually Aaron in the car. Nikki gives Neil a tour of the apartment and finds a bottle of prescription painkillers on Wymac's desk. He steals a few, and when Neil calls him out for it, Nikki ignores him and instead talks about how Wymac hurt his hip years ago, and that's how he first met their team nurse, Abby.
There's so many things just right here. Like, first of all, why does Coach Wymac have the good shit sitting out on his desk?
When he knows that
right?
The miscreants are going to be in his apartment.
Like, they search his apartment for liquor because he hid the liquor, but he just left the prescription painkillers out on his desk.
Yeah.
And also, it wouldn't, I feel like if you need painkillers so much that you have it out on your desk, like, wouldn't you, like, kind of know how many pills are in the bottle and be like, there's some painkillers missing. I wonder if anybody stole my prescription painkillers that I really need.
I have no idea.
And we also never see Nikki use these, so, like, was it just to impress Neil?
Yeah, was it just to see if he would narc on them?
Right? Oh my god, a test. Andrew's like, you need to steal painkillers. Nikki's like, I don't do painkillers. Andrew's like, no, you don't get it. And also, I just love that Neil does call Nikki out on it, because, like, Neil is like, he's living under a false identity. He's been on the run. I'm pretty sure, has he actually killed people? Like,
I think yes.
Okay, so he's killed people and he's like, hey, don't take stuff that doesn't belong to you.
Drugs are stupid.
Neil had to, like, redo Dare every single school that he ended up at, and now
It's so true. It just got hammered into his head so much. Yeah, I wonder why Neil does say anything to Nikki, because it's not like Neil has any loyalty to Wymac at this point.
Yeah.
Like, why does he even feel the need to call Nikki out on it at all?
And does he really think that calling Nikki out on it will do anything but make Nikki think, oh, this guy's a square?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, really, it's so that we can learn that Coach has a hip injury, and that's how he and Abby met. And the best and most subtle way to do that is to have a quick drug theft happen for no goddamn reason.
No idea. The team can't figure out if Wymac and Abby are in a relationship, and Nikki says Neil can be the tiebreaker because they're all betting on it. And I do actually love the ongoing gag about the foxes betting on everything. It's such a good way to illustrate how close they are without necessarily making them friends.
That's so true. They need this, like, mediator thing happening.
They need, like, a little bit of friendly competition. And, like, they're always around each other, but they don't like each other. But, like, betting on things is a way to, like, compete just because they're always around each other.
Right.
They're, like, forced to find these ways to connect.
Like, they're kind of, like, they're socializing, but they're like, we can't actually socialize because that would be weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna get a lot more betting from the foxes later on.
Yes.
Nikki says before dinner they can all go to the court and mentions how excited Kevin must be to have enough people for scrimmages. Aaron agrees, saying that Kevin literally only cares about Exie. Neil notes that this is almost the exact same thing Pretendrew said to him in the car, except Aaron sounds indifferent now, and Pretendrew sounded scornful.
Hoo. Once again, homoeroticism helps us unravel complex, duplicitous plots.
We are weaving such a tangled web.
Yes. Also, I like that, like, obviously Neil is just he's just an evidence compiler guy. That's what he does. But he's already working from the thesis of like, hang on, did Andrew for no fucking reason pretend to be his twin so that he could ask me weird questions without me catching on? Like,
yeah,
I guess he's not
we
really.
can like talk about this after we finish the chapter.
Yes.
But like,
if we ever
get to the end, no. So this is the beginning of Neil figuring out the Andrew-Aaron switcheroo. Neil tests Aaron by asking about something they talked about in the car, but they actually didn't have that conversation. But Aaron doesn't know that Pretendrew and Neil didn't have that convo, so he answers.
Great move on Neil's part. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's smart. This is what convinces Neil that it was actually Andrew who picked him up from the airport. Then the narration tells us all about Andrew's medication, the exposition dump we've all been waiting for. So, long story short, 2 years ago, Nikki got attacked outside a nightclub. Andrew joined the fight to defend Nikki, but he took things too far and almost killed the attackers. So Andrew got sentenced to mandatory therapy and medication for 3 years.
And as we can see, it's definitely improved things.
He's totally rehabilitated, you guys. The narration says, sobriety at any point before that was a violation of his parole. Before we get into anything else, we have to talk about the use of the word sobriety here.
Yeah, wait.
First of all, taking medication that's been prescribed to you doesn't make you not sober.
That's true.
People aren't under the influence of drugs when they're on antidepressants or antipsychotics or whatever. We never really get the full truth about Andrew's medication in these books, but him being off his meds would not constitute him being sober.
Especially when he's doing Cracker Jack.
And it really sucks that this series continually uses this language when talking about his meds, because it's really stigmatizing and it has real-world impacts. In the Worst Bestsellers podcast episode about the Foxhole Court, they point out that some recovery support programs, like Narcotics Anonymous, have historically defined sobriety as not being on any drugs, as in not even prescribed meds, which basically excludes a whole lot of people from participating in those programs.
That's so true.
So referring to Andrew as being sober when he's off his meds or like not sober when he's on his meds is really like not the correct use of that word.
And we never really get like a positive portrayal of somebody who's on medication in this series, I don't think, right?
Yeah, not for like mental illness.
Yeah, it's just kind of like your medication hides who you really are.
So with that vocabulary lesson out of the way, let's talk about court-mandated treatment.
Yeah.
Court-mandated therapy and medication is a real thing that happens, and as one would expect from the corrupt medical and justice systems of this country, it has the potential to be really fucked up. The narration says, Andrew wasn't cheerful naturally. His mania was drug-induced and court-regulated. There is a lot to unpack here. First of all, I'm not sure that Nora Sakovich understands what mania is.
Yeah.
In a medical context, manic does not mean cheerful.
Yeah.
Being in a manic state can make you irritable, anxious, angry, distracted, catatonic, delusional, hyperactive, and a ton of other things. Second, no prescription drug should be inducing mania on purpose.
Very true.
If your meds are sending you into manic episodes, you are on the wrong meds.
Which is a theory that I like, that I saw.
Do you want to talk about that theory?
Yes, but I forgot everything.
I will edit in the Tumblr user who posted this, but basically the theory is that Andrew has bipolar disorder and he is on antidepressants, which can trigger manic episodes in people with bipolar disorder. Like if you are not on the right meds, it can make you manic. And I've read about this and I've like seen this portrayed in fiction. So this person who made this post was basically like, Andrew has bipolar disorder, he's on antidepressants that are making him manic. My issue with that is that Andrew is not actually manic when the book says that he's manic.
That's true. He's more... It's weird because it's supposed to be like he's happy, but I guess he's purely just happy. Like when he's not on his meds, he has issues with how he feels on his meds. But on his meds, he's kind of like, I feel like he's just kind of coked up.
Yeah, it's just like they keep using the word manic to describe Andrew, but I don't think that he's ever like actually experiencing mania in the real sense of the word.
Uh-huh.
Hey, it's Editing Una. Nate and I are talking about a post by Tumblr user Mostly Maudlin, which is titled An Attempted Explanation of Andrew's Manic Pills. I'll reblog it to the Foxhole Cast Tumblr, so you can read the whole thing yourself. I did misremember part of the post. Mostly Maudlin does say they don't think Andrew is experiencing mania in the books. They write, he sleeps, he fulfills his responsibilities, he doesn't seem to have any delusions of grandeur. His symptoms align better with hypomania, which is less severe and accounts for the things we noted before, parentheses, mood elevation, short attention span, irritability, impulsiveness. And I didn't realize this before I looked it up, but the bipolar theory actually has some basis in canon. In response to a Tumblr ask about Andrew's mental state, Nora Sakovich said, Andrew is manic-depressive, with more deep lows than highs. And bipolar disorder used to be called manic depression. Personally, I don't take this as confirmation that Andrew has bipolar disorder, mostly because I don't really believe Sakovich ever had a concrete grasp of Andrew's medical situation. In a different Tumblr post, she admitted Andrew's medication isn't based on anything from real life, and, quote, I'm pretty sure Andrew's entire scenario is the most unrealistic thing in the series. You can read Sakovich's full answers about Andrew's meds and over 120,000 words of other extra content by visiting thefoxholecast.tumblr.com/foxarchive. Now back to Una and Nate from the past.
Yeah, you're right. So yeah, what do the meds do to him exactly? Like, it's kind of inconsistent and doesn't seem like it could be caused by one drug. Honestly, when you were saying that, like, I feel like we were talking earlier and you were saying, like, his meds, like, they make him happy, but they also calm him down. And I was like, oh, he's on speedballs, but I don't think he's on speedballs.
It doesn't make any sense because the drugs, he's being given the drugs to make him not violent.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if that were the case, it would make so much more sense if the drugs were a sedative?
Yeah, or a depressant.
Yes.
Or I guess that's the same thing.
Yes, a downer, as
they say.
But his drugs, if they're making him manic, in the way that this book uses the term manic, like he's really happy and he can't stop smiling and he is very talkative and he's got a lot of energy, that would be a stimulant.
Yeah.
So why would they be giving him a stimulant to make him less violent?
That's true. I mean, I'm just thinking, because the only stimulant I have tried is Adderall. And I guess, like, I'm thinking, like...
Maybe you should specify that you... right. You haven't dabbled in Adderall.
Right, that's true. I take Adderall as prescribed by my psychiatrist. And as in my experience, it'll make me less anxious, which makes me less angry. So, like, the amount that I would theoretically want to kill somebody before and after I take Adderall will be like, I would want to kill somebody and then I take Adderall and it kicks in and I'm like, maybe instead of killing somebody, I could just read about Lou Reed for 3 hours and then it's all fine. I don't even know. Adderall does not make me... No, it does actually, because sometimes I take an Adderall and then I read a Tumblr post that makes me mad and I think about that for 3 hours. So never mind, actually. I could totally kill somebody. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, yeah, that is a strange... Like, it just seems like we need something to make Andrew... Like, basically, it's just like, what drug will make Andrew fun and cool and wacky? And
edgy.
Yes, edgy.
Yeah.
And it's the Joker gas from Batman's The Joker.
Yes, in pill form that you have to take every hour.
Right. And also, we're going to talk about this later, but, like, later in the scene, Neil's like, so if Andrew got tested for being on drugs, it would be bad. Like, it's bad for him to risk not being on drugs, because if he got tested, they know he wasn't on drugs. And I was trying to figure out how long various drugs stay in your piss. And the internet was not super helpful. But basically, I feel like the main thing is that, like, it's much easier to get caught taking a drug than it is to get caught not taking a drug.
Oh, yeah,
like,
you're right.
Right, because it, like, lingers, like...
It'll stay in your system.
But if it's not in your system, you can just take it, and it gets processed pretty fast, I think, for, like...
Yeah, I guess I don't know the specifics of that, but I can imagine that a drug test is more helpful at deciding when you are on drugs rather than when you are not on drugs.
Yeah. I feel like just like, are they like, nobody's gonna be like, Andrew, you need to whip it out and piss right now. Like, he'll probably have time to like take his meds and drink some water, and they can be like, well, it seems like you're not on enough meds, but like they can't really prove.
Yeah.
They can't be like, you have this amount of meds in your pee, so actually
you missed one pill, so you could drive Neil from the airport. Yeah.
You're going back to jail, motherfucker.
Literally. Yeah, I think that it's not supposed to make sense. It doesn't. Or maybe at one point it was supposed to make sense, but like there's no way to make Andrew's meds make sense. It is purely a plot device, and there's no logic behind it, and there's no basis in reality for it either.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about Andrew's meds later when we get to like, oh, he has to go off his meds to play Xe.
Oh, right.
And like all this other stuff. It'll come back again.
I feel like stimulants should really make you way better at playing Xe.
Right?
Like
wouldn't that make you more focused and better at playing Xe?
And just like you have like, you can run faster and shit. Like you don't feel pain as much. Like if I take an Adderall and then run, I'm like, yo, I don't feel like I'm fucking dying. This is actually fine.
Yeah. So why does Andrew want to go off of his meds? Well, I think the explanation is that his drugs make him fuzzy and he doesn't want to be in a haze all the time or whatever. But like, that's not what stimulants do.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's a lot of like conflicting effects of these drugs, and it's not real.
If anyone wants to send us more drugs so we can do research,
stop.
We will dedicate ourselves tirelessly.
Oh my god. So yeah, all of this is to say, Andrew's medication is among the first and worst problematic things in this series, but I have found a way to deal with it.
Ooh.
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Andrew's meds are a metaphor for society.
Yeah!
I just came up with this recently because I got like, just the past couple times I've been listening to the audiobooks, I'm like, the meds don't make any fucking sense. It's making me upset. Mm-hmm. So why would Nora Sakovich make the meds like this besides just it's fun and edgy? I think that there's something to be said for the fact that Andrew is a person who the world has let down again and again. Like, he's an abuse survivor. He's been incarcerated. He has misdiagnosed mental illness. He's an orphan. The world has not been kind to him. And his court-mandated medication is like this perfect, emblematic representation of how the world misunderstands and mistreats him.
That's so true. Like, they see him as somebody who needs to be controlled and maintained rather than like somebody who needs help. They're like, you need to behave because you're a bad person.
Yes.
And that hurts him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're trying to control him, and Andrew is uncontrollable. And I think that that's just like Nikki's in trouble. Andrew steps in to help. He does what Andrew does and is like super violent and takes things too far or whatever. But like in Andrew's worldview, like that was a completely rational action to take.
Right.
And instead of seeing the world from Andrew's perspective, everyone is like, he's crazy. He needs to be medicated. He needs to be controlled. And Neil is one of the first people that comes along and is like, no, I get why he acts like that.
Yeah. Because in Andrew's world, like, he cannot be like, oh, if I just beat these guys up a little, then he'll leave me alone. Like, he needs to actually make sure that people who hurt him or his family won't be able to hurt them again.
Yeah, Andrew has a very intense moral code or, like, way of viewing the world. And I'm not saying that that's right, but to Andrew, it makes sense. And Neil is the first person to realize that there's like this logic behind how Andrew acts. And you don't need to control him with drugs. You can reason with him.
Right. And that's interesting because he's the first person to understand it. But meanwhile, Andrew has his whole little cult who already obey his moral code, even though they also think it's basically irrational.
Yeah, but he has made them obey him through, like, fear and violence.
Yeah.
And I think Neil is the first person to come along and be like, I'm not afraid of you. I understand how you work.
Yes. Kind of sexy.
You know it. Let's move on for now.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to talk about all of this stuff when it comes back up later. So, back to the book. Neil is wondering why Andrew would go off his meds when Andrew appears with a bottle of whiskey he's stealing from Wymack. Andrew asks if Neil is going to tell on him, and Neil just hits him with the, no, but I would ask him why you're not medicated. And then we get this glorious scene.
Nicky was the first to find his tongue, but he reverted to German to ask Aaron, am I crazy? Did I just see that happen?
Don't look at me, Aaron said.
I'd prefer an answer in English, Neil said.
Andrew put a thumb to the corner of his mouth and dragged it along his lips to erase his smile. That sounds like an accusation, but I didn't lie to you.
Omission is the easiest way to lie, Neil said. You could have corrected me.
Could have. Didn't, Andrew said. Figure it out yourself.
I did, Neil said. He tapped 2 fingers to his temple, copying Andrew's mocking salute from their first meeting. Better luck next time.
Oh, Andrew said. Oh, you might actually turn out to be interesting. For a little while, at least. I don't think the amusement will last. It never does.
Don't mess with me.
Or what? I can see
yes. There. That was good. I feel like you captured Andrew's sudden spark of interest.
Oh, I love, because like this, Neil is not even trying.
Right.
And Andrew was not expecting it, but Neil is just doing all of these things that are like capturing Andrew's attention so well. And Andrew just has no idea what's going to hit him. Yeah, I think this is like the beginning of the end for Andrew.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
He's got a big storm coming. He has no idea what's going to hit him, but this is like his first little clue of like, oh, Neil is kind of interesting. I'm going to keep my eye on him.
I feel like Neil is like not like other girls. Like everybody else is trying to impress or be afraid of this troubled bad boy, but Neil is just like, I don't care.
Exactly. Wymack enters and interrupts the scene. Andrew and Kevin hide the bottle of whiskey somehow. Side note, in the Sunshine Court, we learn that ravens aren't allowed to drink.
Oh, wow.
So, like, I'm just imagining Kevin coming to the Foxes and Andrew immediately being like, if you want to roll with us, you have to drink like us. And Kevin getting drunk with them for, like, the first time.
Kevin just is like, alcoholism unlocked.
Literally. Exactly. Wymack comes in and comments on Neil getting here in one piece despite Nicky's awful driving, and Neil plays along, not giving away that it was actually Andrew who drove him. Wymack gives Neil keys to the Exy Court and his apartment. It's time for the key motif!
Oh yeah, jingle jingle.
The narration says, Neil felt steadier with them in his hand. It didn't matter where he was sleeping or what tricks Andrew was up to. There was a court here and he had permission to play on it. Which I love, because, like, I mean, the whole key motif is, like, when someone gives you a key, they're giving you permission to be somewhere. It's this, like, solid, concrete symbol of belonging, and Neil has, like, never had that, and Neil is going to acquire so many physical and metaphorical keys in this series. It's exquisite.
Yeah, I still remember the ultimate line. You gave me a key and said it was home or something.
Oh my God. Like... Don't even get me started. Wymack lets them go with a warning not to traumatize Neil on his first day. Neil asks Wymack if there's a safe place to keep his duffel bag, and Wymack makes Nicky leave the room before asking, how safe is safe? Neil replies, it's all I have. Wymack unlocks a drawer in his desk, takes out all the files, and hands the key to Neil. Neil is stunned by Wymack's kindness and tries to ask him why he'd help him like this, but Wymack just tells him to get going. Neil tries to give the key back to Wymack, but he tells him to keep it until he moves out. The narration says, Neil looked down at the key in his palm, at the security Wymack so easily and unquestioningly gave him. Maybe Neil wouldn't get any sleep tonight, and maybe he'd spend the next couple weeks waking up every time Wymack snored a little too loud. But maybe Neil really was okay here for now.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like the same as in chapter 1. Like, Wymack offers this level of understanding that Neil has never experienced from another human being before. It's really awesome. And I love how Wymack just kind of like reads that on him and doesn't ask him for explanation. He just gives Neil what he needs right away. He's like, you need a place to keep your duffel bag that has everything you own in it? I am going to take all of these important files out of my desk and set them aside, and they're going to topple over. I love the detail about how the stack of files like topples over, and Wymack doesn't care.
Right.
And he's just like, this is for you now.
And if Wymack was keeping files in his safe while he leaves his oxycodone out on the counter, you know that's some important.
Right? Yeah, like what could those files possibly be? Neil goes outside with everyone and they get on the elevator. Andrew pretends to make a move to grab Neil's keys, and Neil backs into the elevator doors to get away from him. So Andrew's like basically got him pinned to the wall.
Right. This is another moment of choreography that I love, because again, there he's like, oh my god, they all stood in perfect places in the elevator to get me, but also like, you're in an elevator.
There's not a lot of places to stand.
Andrew just needed to pin Neil to the wall homoerotically.
That's basically it. Andrew tells Neil that it's nice to meet him, and it'll be a while before they meet like this again, meaning when Andrew is off his meds. Andrew says they promised Abby not to, quote, break Neil before June, but after all the foxes are here, they'll throw him a, quote, welcome party. Later we learn that this means they're going to take him to Eden's Twilight in Columbia, South Carolina, which is an excellent chapter that I can't wait to get to.
Yes.
Neil says, you need to rethink your persuasion techniques. They suck. I don't need to be persuasive, Andrew said, putting a hand to Neil's chest as the elevator slowed to a stop. You'll just learn to do what I say.
Hot.
The hand on the chest is completely unnecessary.
Wait.
Like, it's just so good.
It's like, let me just check how sculpted your pecs are before I mess with you.
Yeah, let me just get into your personal space, like, hardcore. Yeah.
Got all my buddies in this elevator, making sure you can't go anywhere else in the elevator.
I can't believe that no one knows that Andrew is gay.
They're just like, man, this is just one more fucked up thing that Andrew does.
He's just so possessive, you guys. He's just so violent. It's like, there's definitely like multiple reasons he put his hand on Neil's chest there. Andrew pushes Neil out of the elevator when it opens, and everyone heads for the door. Neil thinks about how Kevin won't be his only problem here, but he thinks at least Andrew will be easy to handle because Neil grew up around violence and knows how to deal with it. Again, he's got a big storm coming.
Oh, God.
Also, just a side note, Neil's narration calls Andrew a, quote, psychotic midget, which is extremely fucking rude and stigmatizing and offensive.
2 bad words in there. Don't use either of those for people.
This is not the last time that the books refer to Andrew this way, but it is the last time that we will repeat them on this podcast.
Yay!
Anyway, the chapter ends with Nikki asking Neil, ready for this? And Neil replying, ready. And he could not be more incorrect about that.
This is the only time in this series where we'll see Neil misjudge how he feels about his situation.
That's chapter 2.
Yeah.
Basically nothing happens.
Right? They go to the apartment, they steal some shit, and then go down the elevator. They don't even get to the court yet. We need to have all this tension in the elevator
This
first.
is still like a transition chapter between Neil getting recruited and like actually getting to the court.
Right.
Which is like, yeah, but it's so much like happens like exposition wise and like dialogue wise, and it just takes so much energy to like pick apart what's going on like with Andrew and Aaron.
Yeah. I feel like these are kind of like the first chapter, like you get a good grasp of the situation. There's a lot of exposition and it's like, all right, but it's like, it's interesting enough that you're like pulled in. And then this one is where it starts getting, it's like intimidating. It's like, oh fuck, I'm going to have to keep track of all this shit. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the point when I first read it, there was like, I'm not keeping track of all this shit. And proceeded to not understand so many things about the book, but I still enjoyed it. So
that just reminded me of like when I tell people to read the Locked Tomb series. I basically tell them like there are a lot of characters to keep track of, a lot of different like names and titles and backstories, and you're not gonna get it at first. You just need to keep reading and like trust that the narrative will like give you what you need to know in ways that are more obvious. And, like, you don't need to pay attention to every single little detail because Tamsin Muir's writing is just that good. And it's what makes rereading those books also very gratifying because once you like know more about everything, it's easier to read and it's more interesting to read because you pick up on more. But it's also not terrible, at least in my opinion, the first time you read it. I don't think that Nora Sakovic has the same skill in this book.
I would also agree. It's like the first time you read it and you kind of get the vibes, and the second time it's like, oh, that's why this was an important moment.
Yeah. Or like even like second or third time, like you don't even get it. We've both read this series multiple times and we're still like clueless about how Andrew's medication is supposed to work.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, basically, like, if you're reading this the first time, you're confused and you just have to go with it. And, like, it doesn't even, I don't know, like, I guess it's fine, but...
I feel like it's not confusion in the same way, like, with the Black Tomb, it's like there's all this, like, intricate shit that you kind of figure out because it's never directly said, but you just kind of, like, put pieces together and it's like, whoa, that was happening. And for this, it's, like, that much confusion, but about basic information, like, what Andrew's meds do, or, like, what is the rules of Exy.
Yeah, like in Gideon the Ninth, it's like you don't know a lot of what's happening because it is like a mystery on purpose.
That's
and
true.
It's got all this world building that you don't know, but like you kind of get the vibes as you go along. And if you reread it, it's like even better because suddenly you have all of this information. But it's like that because it doesn't spell things out explicitly. And it's frustrating in Foxhole Court because they do spell everything out explicitly, but it still doesn't work.
Right. It's just like, it's like too much information that like you would have to just like sit and write shit down with charts to actually.
Yeah.
And then it's too much information and yet also not enough information to actually like understand.
Yeah. Or it's like contradicting information.
Yeah. Maybe Neil's just an unreliable narrator.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Yeah. Do you have anything that we didn't get to?
Ooh, let me see. From my notes, somewhere around page 20. Oh yeah, notes on page 22. It kills me every time they call Neil a sub. I love that. They're just like, yeah, you're the new sub. You're our sub. I'm like, yeah, he is. And I feel like because eventually he's no longer the substitute. Mm-hmm. Or whatever that means in sports.
Yeah,
but
substitute.
Like it really, okay, so, but it really only happens in this book, and then it's like more normal. I'm like, shout out to the first book. There's a lot of problems, but we also have some weird psychosexual shit going on, and it's so important.
Yeah, the first book does have some good crumbs to feed on.
Yeah, or even morally ambiguous crumbs that still taste delicious.
Yes. One might argue that morally ambiguous crumbs are the most delicious crumbs
that's true.
To pick up on.
That's true.
Yeah.
This is what they discuss in the ant world.
And the English major world.
Yeah. So many similarities between ants and English majors.
Truly. The truth come out.
The truth come out.
Okay, we've been recording for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I think that we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we've said all that can possibly be said on these 2 chapters until like next week when we both realize something that can also be said, but it's too late.
Yeah, we'll just post about it, or I'll edit it in after.
Yeah.
Or...
Oh no, I just meant that that we can never truly be done discussing.
Oh,
it's like
yes.
Finnegan's Wake or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just it's just like incomprehensible, but people say that it makes sense.
As someone who actually took a whole seminar on Ulysses by James Joyce, I can confirm that at times Foxhole Court is more cryptic. Depending on what chapter of Ulysses you're reading. I feel like if I ever become a professor in the future and I get to make a seminar about any book that I want,
oh my god,
I could do it on the Foxhole Court and I would never run out of things to talk about. Which is why we're doing a podcast.
Exactly.
What is a podcast except a really long weekly seminar that goes on forever?
Yes.
With that, let us know your thoughts about Chapter 2 at thefoxholecasters@gmail.com or on social media. We are The Foxhole Cast on Tumblr, Instagram, and YouTube. Find all these links and more at thefoxholecast.card.co.
Thanks for listening.
You were amazing.
Wow, I'm uncomfortable now.